Shalom and welcome to Jerusalem Studio. The difference between the military and the diplomatic dimension in strategic posture have rarely been so evident as in Israel's current regional framework, almost 2 years after the heinous atrocities committed on October 7th. While Hamas may be down but not out completely, and the Houthies in Yemen managed to effectively blockade the port of Eilat, three stronger enemies have been soundly defeated by the IDF, namely Hezbollah in Lebanon, Syria, and Iran proper. The military balance therefore favors Israel, yet politically, for all intents and purposes, it is mainly supported by one single major world power, albeit the leading and most important one. Many of the world's capitals are now saying that they will soon tire from the Gaza War and will most likely recognize Palestinian Statehood. So how is Israel coping with these challenges? And is it possible to arrive at a well-balanced political military solution? Joining us to navigate this minefield include, here in Israel, Major General in Reserve Yaakov Amidror, formerly an Israeli National Security Advisor and currently a distinguished fellow at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, as well as at the Gensa Center in Washington, D.C. It's great to see you, General.
Nice to have you.
Sir, also joining us from Washington, D.C. is retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett, formerly a U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs, among others. It's great to see you as well, General.
Great to see you, Jonathan.
And I'd like to start with asking you, General Amidror, when we're looking at the complexities at hand from a strategic level, could you characterize for us the broad sense of those intricacies from Israel's perspective?
Yes, Israel now is facing a decision point. After the success of eliminating Hamas as a threat to Israel, destroying Hezbollah's ability to attack Israel, and now Hezbollah is under pressure from the Americans and the Lebanese government to be disarmed. Syria is not anymore part of what King Abdullah called the Shiite crescent, and Iran is after a shock, which was made by 12 days of huge success of the IDF attacking, eliminating the anti-air system of Iran, destroying the ability of Iran to produce ballistic missiles, and reducing the ability of Iran to continue with the nuclear project. Now Israel is facing something in an area which was the source of the war, the beginning of the war. It's Gaza Strip. Now we have to decide how far we are ready to fight and to sacrifice for eliminating Hamas, not from being a threat to Israel, that was achieved, from being the force which is controlling Gaza and threat to any third party or the IDF to stay in Gaza. And for that it's a big decision because we have 20 hostages in the hands of Hamas. This is the card that they have, they play with it. And Israel will have to make a decision, and probably the decision was made by the Prime Minister, that we are not stopping the war. We are preferring to continue. If Hamas does not negotiate, we prefer to go to the continuation of the war, to conquer Gaza City and around it as the first stage, then to move to refugee camps which are south of Gaza, and by that we will end controlling the whole Gaza Strip. This very little description is, the meaning of it is another 6 to 12 months of war. And the international community is strongly against it. The European countries are calling Israel to stop the war. Recognition of the Palestinian state, which is a stupid move, but that's what they are doing, losing the ability to leverage and to change the character of the Palestinian Authority, which everyone knows it's very corrupted and inefficient. So They are ready to sacrifice the only leverage that they have just to force Israel to stop the war. And the decision of the Prime Minister and the cabinet is to continue with the first stage in Gaza Strip, because it is understood here in Israel by those who made the decision that allowing Hamas to get out of the war, controlling Gaza, might lead to another round within a year or two, and it will signal to the Middle East that Hamas, after the atrocities of the 7th of October, survived the war against Israel, survived after being almost destroyed, but survived the war against Israel. And this is very bad symbol for the Middle East.
Well, it's bad messaging, something that you do not want to have even the slight perception of that within the minds of malign actors throughout the region. But nonetheless, if I may turn also to General Kimmett on this, from my conversations with a number of senior practitioners in Washington, I was told that the United States was fully coordinated on this move and gave its blessing to Israel when we're talking on pursuing a decisive action that will ultimately bring about the eradication of much of the pockets of resistance that remain intact in Gaza, allowing at the same time in parallel also to establish additional distribution centers or locations for the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, that has frustrated Hamas's capacity to exploit humanitarian aid for its own war efforts. What can you tell us about that, and to what degree does that American backing provide Israel the necessary long fortitude, so to speak, in order to prosecute this final push?
Well, I think you're characterizing it in a way that we would speak about Ukraine. We're fully behind Ukraine. We're fully supportive of the need for logistic support. We're there for as long as it takes with what you need. I don't think that the United States' support for Israel is that strong, primarily because of the media messaging that Hamas and others have been so effective at. If I was to characterize it, I would say that the United States is reluctantly supportive, wants to see this war end, wants to see the hostages back, wants to make sure that there are no long-term threats to Israel proper remaining. But I would not say that anybody's enthusiastic about the Israeli plans.
Well, enthusiastic is, of course, not something that we can expect in this context, but nonetheless, I do hear that there is support in Washington, and that is something to take note of. In this context, of course, there is much frustration, particularly in the White House. President Donald Trump himself voicing that frustration to his colleagues and the people in his inner circle, so to speak, with regard to Hamas's blatant rejection and continued defiance of reaching, quote unquote, a reasonable solution. Do you see this somehow?
But I think there is something very important in what was said by the general, and it is about the schedule. Yes, the Americans understand that that should be done. I'm not sure that they are satisfied from the long schedule of the plan, how long it will take to implement it, to achieve the achievement that they agree should be achieved. But the problem in Gaza that it is a very slow process. Professionally, it's very hard to make it fast.
So, General Amidro, on that, because you mentioned between 6 to 12 months, the messaging that was provided to Washington indicated more of a 5 to 6 months. Was that messaging not accurate, so to speak?
No, it's accurate because you never know. From the lessons that we had in other areas of Gaza, we can gain control on the ground within 2, 3, 5 minutes, weeks. The problem is how we continue to clean the area underground. And Gaza is a full walled, which was built underground. How long it will take us to clean it is something that no one knows. My assessment is it is more than 6 months, but maybe the professionals which have much more experience than me, because they are there in the last almost 2 years and they gain huge experience, maybe their assessment is more accurate. From what I understand, it is very slow process if you are not ready to sacrifice many soldiers, and we are not. It is
Right.
very, very slow process to go under the ground and slowly to erode the ability of Hamas to fight under the ground, to kill them under the ground, and to use your control to destroy the system afterwards. So here I think is the difference. The difference between the two assessments is about how long it will take us to clean it. To gain the control, I think that will not be any argument. It's a question of few weeks on the ground. The problem is that you have to fight in many cases parallel underground and on the ground. And I didn't mention another very problematic challenge is how you do that without killing all the hostages, which is a challenge to the commanders there in Gaza. And when we are moving into Gaza city, which is the stronghold of Hamas, it is going to be a very complicated operation.
Indeed, just a reminder for our viewers, up to 20 of the hostages are believed to be still alive. Out of 50 hostages in total, 30 of whom have already been murdered in Hamas captivity. General Kimmett, a last point by you, and I'd like to also shift gears to the Lebanese theater and to ask whether the continued activities in Gaza challenge to a certain degree the situation also in Lebanon, or is this already disconnected from one theater to the other?
Yeah, the only point I'd make to add on to Jakob's point is that you can fully expect that every one of those tunnels will have IEDs and them other explosives. Now, you may get 95% of them, but those 5% that you won't get will still cause a significant number of casualties to your soldiers. And in many cases, they will not be killed, but they will be buried alive. So I think that there is an issue that the Israeli public will have to come to grips with if this is not only a war in the city, but in the city under the city.
Right, which IEDs also means that to avoid military casualties, IEDs would be dealt with from afar, potentially also causing much more destruction than what we would want to see in Gaza. But nonetheless, General Kimmett, if we may once again redivert to Lebanon, what is the perception right now in Washington, particularly at a time when the Lebanese government has come out and stated its intention of having the military formulate a type of roadmap to the disarmament of all militias in Lebanon, to include Hezbollah, to include Palestinian militias operating in the vicinity of Tripoli and elsewhere. Is this a viable reality?
Well, certainly not if you listen to the reactions that have come from Hezbollah. They refuse to disarm. And the real question is the Hezbollah political authorities, if they want to have any type of purchase inside the government, they're going to have to come along with this as well. I don't see it happening anytime soon. I think it's going to take a lot of negotiations with Hezbollah before they agree to that. And as we've always seen with disarmaments in the past, you'll probably get about 25% of the weapons, and they will be the least capable weapons, and the other ones will be hidden and stockpiled. So I am not optimistic that we're going to see a much needed disarmament of Hezbollah anytime in the near future.
General Amidro, do you see eye to eye with General Kimmett on this?
Um, for me, it's kind of unbelievable situation. I was colonel then in the Northern Command, responsible for the whole intelligence in the Northern Command at the end of the 80s. And almost 40 years. And I saw Hezbollah from the beginning. To see today the situation in which the government of Lebanon, yes, under pressure of the United States of America, but calling for disarming of Hamas, of Hezbollah, and the fact that Hezbollah is not blowing Beirut, but is negotiating, speaking about it. But I mean, the other side in Lebanon is strong enough versus very weak Hezbollah to continue the process, in spite the pessimism that I share with Leonard King. But the phenomena of Lebanese calling outside in the public, they don't afraid for disarming of Hezbollah is a huge achievement. It very much depends how the Lebanese people will react to that. If that will be well understood in Lebanon, and the declaration of the Saudis 2 days ago is very important in this process. They said, we are not ready to invest in Lebanon unless Hezbollah will be disarmed.
Right.
And now, because of the change in Syria, the fact that there is no direct connection between Iran and Hezbollah, because Syria is not anymore the backyard of Hezbollah, it's an enemy that they have to take into consideration. The fact that they lost a lot of their capabilities and the regime is gaining strength because of the situation, it might lead to a different, something unbelieved from my point of view, situation in which Hezbollah will be ready to give up something. And if that begins, it's a process. If they will lose the first line of saying no totally, and they will begin to compromise, it might lead at the end to something bigger than that. It very much depends on the pressure from America, the Arab countries, and no one likes Hezbollah in the region. No, in other areas, we meet Turkey, which Turkey doesn't like what Israel is doing. They try to help other forces in the Middle East. Here, there is no anyone but Iran, which was disconnected from the land bridge which was there during the years. And I don't see who will be ready to help Hezbollah. This is why I believe that I'm very pessimistic, but still there is a chance, a little one, but there is a chance that if United States of America succeed to recruit to the pressure the Arab world and the population of Lebanon, it will be clear in Lebanon that they are paying high price and they will pay even higher one if Hezbollah will not be disarmed. And if they succeed to disarm Hezbollah, the investment from the Arab countries, from America, the whole frame around Lebanon will be a different one, which helped them a lot economically. At the end, many years ago, Prime Minister Rabin asked me, who is the most important force in Lebanon? And I said, the Greens. He said, what Greens? There is no Green party in Lebanon. No. I said, this is the color of the dollars. At the end, the economy speaks.
Right. Which is a significant point to be made, since I do also think that unless Lebanon rids itself from the deeply corrupt practices that it has been embroiled with for so long, it will have a hard time to secure the support from the IMF, from the World Bank, and will have a hard time recalibrating itself beyond the bounds of those terrorist organizations, being at the brink of the cliff, so to speak, for a very long time, on the verge of collapse, economic collapse at that. But General Kimmett, let's shift our attention to the Iranians. When we're speaking about the Islamic Republic of Iran, naturally, they have suffered some devastating blows, but from a strategic power competition level, we're seeing that the Chinese came to some type of realization that they need to make sure that the Iranians don't collapse entirely. And therefore, we are seeing now, excuse me, that Beijing is increasing its efforts to provide the Iranians with surface-to-air capabilities, with other type of capabilities that were already presented into the theater of Pakistan in its warfare against India, and therefore it feels more comfortable in doing so. Should we be alarmed, and what should the American response be to this type of activities?
Well, first of all, we all know why China has an interest in Iran, and that's all about the oil, plain and simple. This should not come as a surprise. As we know, the Chinese have been trying to rebuild the surface-to-air capability of the Iranian military ever since the attack by the Israeli military, taking out those air defense systems back, I believe it was in April. And of course, by maintaining a foothold and, in fact, throwing a lifesaver to the Iranians. The one thing we do know about the Chinese is that they always expect repayment of one kind or the other. And when you get the Chinese in, they're like termites. They don't get out. So not only in Iran, but I think the next place we're going to see the Chinese is in Syria, along with what appears to be a new invitation to the Russians by the Jelani government.
Which is a very interesting point to be made when there was a very significant conference in Syria on reconstruction, where they actually invited all kind of construction companies to enter into the country and to start bidding on all kind of projects. It was quite interesting to see that over 90 of those companies happened to be Turkish. Surprise, surprise. But there was also a couple of dozens that were Chinese companies offering their services there. And these two countries were the only ones present, which is indicative of the intentions of Beijing, at least when we're talking about Syria. We are drawing near to the end of the program, and I'd like to give...
If I may say something about that, because I was involved in those issues in Israel, and I told Americans many times, guys, if you continue to play fair play, in which you send private companies around the world to compete with the Chinese, you will lose in every tender. No way that you will win. The Chinese private companies are coming with the backing of the state. They can give prices that no private company in the West, including the United States of America, can offer, can put on the table. If you decide to continue with this fair play, no problem, the Chinese will win. If you have a strategic interest, build a system in which you are helping American companies to win. Otherwise, you will lose again and again, and you cannot complain. If I am now a Syrian decision makers, and there are good offers from countries like Turkey, is for sure. The connection that they have, they will win whatever they want. But when the Chinese are coming in, no one can compete, and this is why American companies even don't show in the tender. They understand that there is no way to win. You have to change the system in America if you want to have kind of ability to win those tenders and to have the influence in the future. Or say, guys, we understand we will lose to the Chinese. Let's see what will happen in the future. If you want to be in the game, you have to change the rules of the game in America.
Yes, sir. And I completely agree with that. I think that it's quite apparent in many of the regional capitals. General Kimmett can attest to that. But General Kimmett, you have 1 minute for your reaction to what General Amidrol just mentioned, and 30 seconds to provide the closing statement.
Two things. Number one, he's absolutely right, which means that there needs to be better state support from the United States. I find our embassies to be less than aggressive. They'd rather talk diplomatically than compete aggressively. But the other key issue is we're bound by not only the American Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, but we also follow the British Bribery Act. Look, the fact remains you can't swing a dead cat in the Middle East without hitting a Chinese businessman. And they're notorious and they're unabashedly not embarrassed by the fact that they bribed to get the contracts. So you've got that. The last thing I would say in 30 seconds is keep an eye on what's happening with the Russians. If in fact this is true, as it came out in Kommersant, that unnamed Syrian sources said that the Gilani government has invited Russian military patrols to operate in the south of Syria. There's clearly some issues that Israel needs to worry about.
Absolutely. And of course, the United States is apprised of the latest developments with this regard. I think it's also safe to say, specifically with regard to General Amidrol's very important recommendation to the Americans, that this recommendation goes also out to our European allies and partners who are no less in a competitive posture vis-a-vis China and are losing many tenders that they could have won were they to compete with state backing. But this is all the time that we have for today. I'd like to thank General Yaakov Amidrol and General Mark Emmett for all of your valuable insights. And I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until our next edition, from here in Jerusalem, Shalom.
As the geostrategic landscape continues to shift at unprecedented speed, Deep Dive is a weekly update you cannot afford to miss.
There is zero chance that Iran will back away from its terror support.
We have a direct threat against Russian interests.
That's what's at stake. It's not Syria. It's a Middle Eastern order.
Whoever has the most guns, whoever has the most money, the most backing, that's who's going to be in charge.
From Jerusalem to Washington, watch now, Hudson Institute's Deep Dive.